Hey guys, I'm here to talk to you guys about heating issues, AC issues, not getting hot air through your vents. I have a 2012 Jeep Liberty, and I'm here to kind of explain a little bit of what I've gone through to fix this. I know there's a lot of self-help things out there, and I figured I'd just help another guy out because I didn't have too much help on this one. So, first things first, you always want to check your coolant levels. Coolant is the guy that actually runs the whole heat for your system, and I'll explain that in a minute. So if what happens is your coolant gets warmed up by the engine, and it's shot to the heat core, which actually heats the air back underneath the dash. It's not actually in the engine. It's actually underneath the dash for you guys. And what happens is it runs from your coolant, and it runs through your engine, gets warm, and goes up into the firewall with two hoses. And most cars have a two hose, and you'll see that probably on just about any other model like this. And what you have your in and your out. And what it does is hot coolant goes in, heats up the heat core inside, and comes back out and runs through your engine. I've taken care of all the leaky problems, and if you completely run out of coolant like I did, you might have to purge some air out of the system, and you can do that. You can make sure that it's not bubbling through here. You can just take this off, just like that, depressurizes, and you got to push it down, and you can make sure that it's not bubbling. That's your coolant, and as long as that's not bubbling, you're good. If you want to be really specific, you can come over here, and you can see where this guy right here will actually let air out of the system. If you've got an air bubble trapped in the system, you can just very carefully with gloves take that and just very slowly let it out, little tiny counterclockwise movements. Don't take that sucker out all the way. And you do that while you're running. But my problem was not any of the stuff under the hood. We went through a bunch of diagnostics for that. There's a thermostat or thermometer, whatever you want to call it, underneath the tension pulley down here, and you can get to that. But you have to take off the clutch, not the clutch, the tension pulley. You have to take off the belt, take off the clutch, and it's actually that big cable right down here, and it connects underneath of this tension pulley that you gotta get to, and you can replace that. I think total replacement cost for that is probably like $50. So if you take it into the shop, they'll probably charge you $3. It goes for anything with this system if it's not just a simple flush. But what I was having issues under the dash and not over here. So I want to show you what I went through underneath the dash real quick. Before I get into the dash, I just wanted to explain real quick why I know it's not a heater core issue. These two in and out pipes going to your heater core. If you run your car for a little bit, let the coolant get a little warm, and then you can fill these pipes and they both get warm. If the in is warm and the out is cold, then you might have a heater core that's plugged. You might need to flush your heater core, and you can do that really easy. It's really easy to do that. You can look on YouTube because it's probably like a 30-minute job, and it's very simple. But I know mine's not the heated core problem because both of these are warm whenever you run the car for a little bit. So I know it's not a heater core issue. And from that, I found out what the problem was by digging a little deeper. And I'm going to show you now underneath the hood. Take two. And by under the hood, I meant the dash. So the air in the system, you have your heat and your direction. And each one of these are controlled by a little actuator, which is a little gearbox underneath the dash that controls and moves as you do this to your settings. And my problem was this guy. the little actuator that was being controlled by this was stuck and or bad. And you might want to check that. And I'll show you real quick where those are located. It's really easy to access. It takes less than 10 minutes to get in and check it out. The only thing I would say, and I go along with the manufacturer with this, is when you go to unplug and test, look at these actuators, you're going to want to unplug the negative from your battery. They say to unground the systems and let the capacitor run out for about 2 minutes. And that makes sure that the wonderful airbags don't deploy for some reason. It's just a little safety thing, just in case of a malfunction. And I always like those little safety things. Always err on the side of safety, guys. So underneath the dash, I want to do this slow so you can actually kind of see where I'm going. If you go underneath the dash, there's typically a little felt thing. I took that off, and that comes off really easily. And you got your brakes, you got your gas. And if you come underneath here and you look around over here, let's see if I can get away from it. This guy right here is your actuator, and there's 2 of these on my model. You might have a couple more on yours. Mine doesn't have a passenger driver. It's just a straight one setting. And there's 2 of these on my model. I've got this guy and there's another one up there. And I found out by turning on the car and switching between air directional flow and heat, I found that this one up top for my model is the directional flow, and the bottom one down here is the heat door actuator, which there's a little flap on the inside that it moves, that mixes the hot air and the cold air to your desired temperature. And what I did is I took this guy off, and I've already unplugged the battery for 2 minutes, so I could do this for you guys real quick. And you can just, it comes off really easy. It's just a little tab, and you pull it off. It comes off nice and simple. There's 2 bolts, and you take those 2 off, and it slides right out. It's really simple, really easy to take out. I think the replacement for one of these is like $30-40 compared to having the mechanics to do it for you at the dealership. And I'm gonna unscrew this for you guys and show you the inside real quick. Okay, so I've unscrewed it. Now I'm just gonna show you how easily the sucker comes off. It just pulls right out. There's a little tab up here that makes sure that it helps it not move, and it just pulls right out. And you've got a little gearbox. This is the actual piece that moves when you are moving your dial. And this right up here is the actual gear that it's moving. And you can actually move this back and forth, and you can see the little flap moving inside as it changes your air mix. And that's what changes my heat and my cold. So that's your little temperature mix actuator. And it's really simple to take that sucker off if you want to get a new one. I'm not sure how you can test these per se. If it's not moving whenever you move the dial on your running car, it's most likely either stuck or bad. So I went for the stuck option first, and it was stuck. And you can unstick it by simply just moving that, and then sticking this back on there, moving it around a little bit, and then setting it back in and turning it back on. And if it decides it wants to move again, awesome. Hopefully it doesn't get stuck and you have to repeat this a billion times. If it doesn't move, then you probably need a new actuator, a heat door actuator. And it's really easy to install. The only caveat is you do have to calibrate it. And there's some documentation online that you can search through forums and figure that one out. It's a little bit of a process if you don't have one of those awesome handy dandy tools that plugs into your car and you can configure everything. I'm gonna put my actuator back on and come right back to you guys. Okay, so I'm back with you guys. I've got my battery back on. I've got my actuator hooked back up, and I'm gonna show you when it's working, what should happen. So when it's working, you should see these gears right here, right up in here. I can get a better picture of that, I'm not sure. You should see those move as you move the heat. So this is my temperature control actuator. I'm going to be moving my heat, and you should see this guy move. So I'm going to turn it, and it's starting to move as I move the air conditioning temperature settings. So that little gearbox was stuck, and now I have heat again because the little flap inside is actually changing as my actuator moves it. So that was the fix to this problem. Again, the other things you can check are your heat core, and it's a really quick diagnostic to see if there's heat going in or out. If that happens, you need to flush it, and that's again right over here. These are two hoses. You're in and you're out, and you can figure out if they're warm or not. If they're not, if you have one warm and one cold, that means your in is hot and you've got hot coolant going to your heater core, and your out is cold. That means that your heater core is either plugged up and you need to flush that guy. That's always a good thing. That doesn't typically happen on younger cars, the lower miles, but it's always a good thing. You can always get a little extra heat out of that. A clean heater core will definitely keep your air warm if it's just a little bit cool. Again, the other thing, make sure that your coolant is good, and if you have an air bubble in your system somewhere, you can purge that by twisting this little guy here, and your model might be different, but you can always see the hose going into your radiator will have something like this, and you can do that with like a little hex key. Yeah, that's a quick little rundown on how your AC heater unit works. Mine's working again. Thankfully, I didn't have to go spend a whole bunch of money. And you can do these simple diagnostics without having to buy like $70 tools or expensive tools or going and see a mechanic. Just quick troubleshooting. If you don't feel confident taking off pulley belts and stuff, and you've tried everything else, sometimes that temperature thermostat will get stuck open, and that will cause it to not heat. But thankfully, in my case, that was not the case. So again, this is for my 2012 Jeep Liberty, and it's pretty much the same system for all cars. You just got to figure out where all your parts are. I hope this helps you guys out a little bit. So yeah, hope you guys have a great day.